Okay, now that we have evaluated or identified or assessed that how we are going to look into existing literature and identify what problems are prevalent in existing literature. By problem, we mean, okay, what are the limitations and what are the gaps in existing research? The next step is drafting your research proposal. Now, putting all these things into action, putting all these things into words, and proposing a draft research proposal as to what you intend to do, how you intend to do it, and in doing so, you also explain as to what you intend to do and why you intend to do it. What are the limitations or gaps of existing research? So you put all these things in writing, and when you put all these things in writing, the document that you come up with is your research proposal. The research proposal drawn up by the investigators is the result of a planned, organized, and careful effort, and basically contains the following things. It's a planned, organized, and careful effort because you only searched for a particular area or sub area where you were or in which you were interested. So you searched particular databases, you drafted the information, and you looked into what are the gaps in existing research and how you can fulfill or how can you work on those gaps. Now, a research proposal will have the following things. The first one is your working title. Now, your title or the title of your research should be clear, concise, and you should be able to properly focus on, and it should be understandable. By working title, we mean that something that one can easily understand. And by just reading at that particular working title, one should be able to identify what could be or what are the objectives of this research. What problems does this particular research proposal looks into? The second is your background of study. Now, in the background of your study, you look into as to what research is available. This is what we already discussed in our previous session. Now, what research is available in this particular area? What are the gaps in this particular area? What are the limitations of this particular area? And then based on those gaps, limitations, problems in this particular research or in this particular area, you draft your own problem. And then once you draft your own problem, you present it in the form of a problem statement. And that problem statement actually contains two things: the objectives or purpose of the study and the research questions. And with that, you identify, okay, this is the scope of my study. I'm going to conduct this research by evaluating the relationship between these variables in this particular sector. For example, I'm going to look into the relationship between servant leadership, career satisfaction, and life satisfaction in higher education institutions. Now, why is this study relevant? In this case, the relevance means that how these variables are relevant to the higher education institutions. How are these variables relevant to maybe what do you call it? How are these variables relevant to business management? What are the implications for studying these variables in case of management or management research? So next step is, once you have identified, okay, this is the title of my research, these are the gaps in existing research, these are limitations in existing research. Now, once you have identified the gaps and limitations and the problems and the weaknesses in the existing research, you propose your own problem statement. And based on that problem statement, or in that problem statement, you identify the research objectives and research questions. You identify the scope of the study. You identify why is this research study important? What are the implications of this study? And what will be the contributions of this study? Once you do that, once you are clear that, okay, these are the guidelines that I'm going to follow, you establish your research design. What type of study are you conducting? Is it exploratory or is it just descriptive correlational study? We'll be focusing on this in our future topics as well. But exploratory, you want to find out there's not enough material available. There's no theory available, might be. As said, that there is no research available in this particular area as to how these variables are linked with each other. In other case, a research might be confirmatory. You are just confirming the relationship that are already available in existing research. You might want to find out how different leadership styles influence maybe project success. So there is no research onto comparative analysis of leadership styles on project success. Now this is purely exploratory research. There is a certain aspect of confirmatory in it because certain leadership might have been evaluated. But otherwise, it can be exploratory. You are exploring how certain variables might influence or how certain leadership styles might influence project success. Now, how will you collect data? Are you going to do interviews? Okay, then if you are doing interviews, are the questionnaires or are the questionnaires semi-structured, unstructured, or purely structured, fully structured? And you give people options in the form of maybe Likert scale. They are presented with statements with the responses recorded on Likert scale. So there are existing measures that you are using, or you are going to ask open-ended questions and then draw conclusions based on, or draw or discuss the responses of the people through coding. That is purely qualitative research. So how are you going to collect the data? Maybe online or by visiting these peoples. How are you going to draw your respondents? So you have the population. How are you going to draw subjects from that population? Then how are you going to analyze the data that you have collected? Are you going to use structural equation modeling that is normally used these days? Or are you going to focus on any other tool or software or technique? And within SCM, you can have multiple techniques. So what's the time frame for your study? Who are the sponsors for your study? And then your references. Whatever or from wherever you have found about the gaps in existing research, you need to provide references for those studies. And if you are using a particular sampling design, you have to justify your sampling design. And then who said about something about that sampling design? In which book? In which article? So you need to present your complete bibliography. So this is the summary of your research proposal. So in a research proposal, more or less these things should be there. Without these things, there is no research proposal. Obviously, this could be further enhanced by adding new things. There should be a proper literature review section might be. Add a proper literature review section where you briefly discuss how different variables are related. What are the concepts or what is the conceptualization of those variables? What is the meaning of the variables? For instance, in this case, if I'm writing a research proposal on the linkage between servant leadership, career satisfaction, and life satisfaction, I can have 3 different sections, 4 different sections based on the objectives of my study. And within those sections, I would define my concepts and I would explain how these variables could be interrelated with each other, so as to justify my theoretical framework, so as to justify the need for my study. So these are the points that one should consider while writing a research